Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldskythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will be reading you Silmarillion / Horrible Histories fic by Verakunda called And Long Would Mandos Hold Him. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. And Long Would Mandos Hold Him by Verakunda. Summary. Death regrets agreeing to fill in his mate Namo's shift sorting through the dead souls of Middle-earth, at least until the arrival of certain ex-royal counselor of Doriath, whose death may just be the stupidest of all. Stupid deaths, they're funny cause they're true, woohoo! Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. The latest elf passed through the door into the halls of Mandos, and Death flopped back in his chair with a huff. Remind me, he said to Cheryl on his left-hand side. Next time Nama asks us to do him a favor, to tell him where to shove it. Too generous for my own kid, that's my trouble. Thanks, mate. You're our lifesaver, was what Nama had said earlier, looking as stressed as ever. I'll try to get away as soon as I can, but these Mahanaksar meetings can run on a bit. Especially if Nina starts crying. Which she always does. But you shouldn't have any problems. Elves through that door, men through that one, and dwarves through that one. If the Feanorians start another kinslaying, just process that lot in bulk. Oh, and if anyone tries to wriggle out of their weight by singing you a sad song, don't fall for it. That was strictly a one-off, and it just isn't worth the paperwork. But with any luck, you should have a pretty uneventful time of it. Back in the present, Death muttered to himself. He wasn't kidding. This was shaping up to be the most boring afternoon he'd had in a long time. Oh, it wasn't all bad. Earlier, he had a very nice chat with a friendly elven king who had died fighting a werewolf with his bare hands and teeth. Inadvisable in most circumstances, but too impressive to be really considered stupid. And who'd been more than happy to trade tips on looking after long, lustrous blonde hair. Truth to be told, they were nattering away so long that they ended up holding up the queue and creating a bit of a backlog, something that Nama would probably be less than thrilled about when he got back. Not that Nama could talk, mind you. He'd once filled in to do Death's admissions for him, and Death had come back to find the waiting room overflowing because Nama was too busy gabbing with a tweety Oxbridge professor type who'd handed him what looked like a hefty stack of notes just before Death finally managed to shove him through the afterlife door. So there'd been a few highlights, but on the whole, they were few and far between, and the hours were stretching out into purest tedium. I'm using the term hours in a relative sense, of course, as time passes differently in the psychopompic realms, if indeed it can be said to pass at all. I'll tell you what the problem is, he growls to Cheryl, is that no one in this universe seems to die a stupid death. They all die heroically or tragically, but there's a general lack of stupidity to keep things interesting. No sooner had he said these words, however, than the latest arrival stepped up, an elf wearing nothing but a card reading First Age 484, and a scowl. Whoa, do you mind, mate? There's a lady present! Hastily, Death put a hand over Cheryl's eye sockets. Not that she actually had any eyes in that, but it was the principle of the thing. Don't look, darling, and you! He glared back at the elf. Cover yourself up, for goodness sake! Flustered, the newcomer looked wildly about, but in the end had to make do with covering his modesty with the card. Phew, said Death. That was a close one. We're from a family show, you know, but no harm done. He leaned forwards and took up his pink, fluffy pen, ready to fill in the admission form. Name? The elf drew himself up with as much dignity as he could muster given the circumstances, and announced grandly. Cyrus, son of Ithilbor, counselor of King Eluthingal of Doriath. Cyrus, said Death, grinning. Is your first name Miley by any chance? You know, Miley? Cyrus? Oh, never mind. It was funny, Louis, it was. It's not my fault my talent is wasted on you. Then, seeing that the elf was staring at him nonplussed, he cleared his throat and got back to business. Well, Cyrus, I'm sensing a story here. Let's hear your cause of death. Nothing but the facts now. The naked truth. he couldn't help adding, smirking. He had a sneaking suspicion his day was about to improve immensely. Well, began Cyrus, as I have said, I was one of the chief counselors to the king. Long did I stand high in his esteem, above all others in the kingdom, save the queen. Death gave a wide yawn. Yes, bully for you. But I'm not interested in your life story, mate. It's only the death bit we're here for, so if you could get on with it. Lotto sniffed, but duly went on. For many hundreds of years, things were well with me until he came to Doriath. He? My great rival, the author of my doom, Turin, son of Hurin. With every syllable, Cyrus' lip curled a little higher. His father, a lot of men of Hithlum, was lost in a battle with the Dark Lord Morgoth, taken captive or slain, no one knew, and for his safety, his son and heir was sent by his mother to dwell in Doriath. King Thingol accepted Turin as his foster son, and from that day hence he reared him as he were his own. Aw, that's nice. But that was apparently the wrong thing to say, for Cyrus suddenly went red and began to splutter. Nice? Nice? What's nice about being shunted aside, forced to stand by and watch some snotty-nosed little upstart sitting there on the king's knee, soaking up all the love and favor that I had enjoyed for centuries? I decided then and there that between the son of Hurin and I, there could only be the bitterest rivalry. I see. And how old was this Turin, just out of interest? 8 years old, replied Cyrus. Death blinked. And aren't you elves all thousands of years old? Yes, why? Just checking, he waved him on. Back to the story. Cyrus continued. So the years passed by, and as Turin grew, the king honored him more than ever. Not only that, but some of our greatest warriors befriended him. Though, the one alone knows why, because he was always moody and moping about in black, even after his teens were over. And when he came of age, he went away to our northern borders to help with the March Wardens in their fight against the forces of Morgoth, until he became regarded quite a hero. Can you believe? Yes, terrible, said Death, hoping that if he pretended to agree with whatever Cyrus said, he might get to the end of the story quicker. What had looked like it might be an entertaining story was quickly shaping up to be anything but. So, how did you end up like this? Ah, said Cyrus. Well, it just so happens that one evening I came into the Great Hall, and who should be there already but Turin? He was fresh back from the borders and must have come straight to the hall, for he hadn't even bothered to change. He was still in his old, grubby clothes, with his armor torn, his hair all matted and full of twigs, trailing mud and orc guts all over the floor in his big boots. That was bad enough, but the worst of it was he was sitting in my usual place. The cheek of it! He positively bristled. Death could almost swear his ears went even pointier in sheer indignation. But surely, if he'd been away so long, he couldn't have known it was your spot. That's not the point, snapped Cyrus. The point is, I was insulted, so I decided to have it out with him. Of course you did, sighed Death. I sat across from him, Cyrus said, suddenly looking rather smug, and started mocking his manky appearance right there in the middle of the hall. I really let him have it, using all the best insults I could think of. I even took out my own comb and told him to brush his hair with it. And do you know what he did then? Challenge you to fight to the death? Suggested Death hopefully. No! He completely ignored me! Well, I wasn't going to stand for that. Luckily, I just knew how to get at him. Knowing how much he loved and respected his mother back home, I said, if the men of Hithlum are so wild and fell, of what sort are the women of that land? Do they run like deer, clad only in their hair? I'm guessing he didn't like that. Indeed he did not, and like a savage, he picks up his goblet and throws it right at me. Hearing this, Death brightened. Wait, don't tell me. It hit you in the head, and you fell into a coma and died. No! Cried Cyrus, at which Death groaned and slumped back in his chair. It caught me right in the mouth, which hurt a lot. I was spitting blood, and I think I chipped a tooth. But the worst part of it was, Nobody was even remotely sympathetic. Maplung even said I deserved it. Ugh, cried Death, unable to stand it anymore. Does this story have an end? I thought you were supposed to be telling me about how you died, not how you made everyone around you die of boredom. I was just coming to that, Zardos replied testily. Naturally, I couldn't let this insult pass. The insult he gave you because you insulted his mom first? Precisely. So, the next day, I took my sword and shield, hid myself in the woods, and lay in wait. Then, when Turin came walking by, I leapt out at him and prepared to strike him down. Well, that's not cricket. Unfortunately, though he was only a man, Turin had been trained by some of our greatest elven warriors, so he was able to fight back and overpower me in a matter of seconds. Then, before I could even hope to defend myself, he ripped my clothes off, and I felt the point of his sword in my, he gestured awkwardly behind himself. Ooh! Now Death sat up straight, grinning widely and toothily as a skull can grin. He stabbed you in the bum! That's brilliant! I can't remember the last time we had a good bum-related death! Well, no, actually, said Zardos, looking sheepish. He didn't stab me exactly, so much as to give me a sharp jab to get me to start moving. He told me that for what I'd said, I would have to run through the woods with only my hair to cover me, and he'd be right behind me. So, of course, I ran. I ran for my life, right through the woods. Naked? Death put in, helpfully. Yes, naked. And it was no fun, let me tell you. But what else could I do? Tori was right behind me the whole time, and hadn't I just seen him fly into a sheer murderous rage, completely unprovoked? So I ran, and ran, and ran, but I was so terrified, I wasn't looking where I was going, and I ran straight off the edge of a cliff. Death rocked back with laughter, clapping in giddy delight that only a truly stupid death could bring. Chase stalkers to the woods until he fell off a cliff! That is priceless! Ooh, I know! The embarrassment must have been unbearable for you! Get it? Because you were bare naked? He dissolved into laughter again. That's not funny, blustered Zardos. I won't stand for this! I am a counselor to King Thingol! I'll have you know! Yeah. Ignoring the elf, Death turned to confer with his colleagues, who were unanimously in their appreciation for the stupidity of his death. Even Louis had to agree for once. That's 3 yeses. You're through to the afterlife, Zardos. Well, you would be anyway, but even if you were in my universe, you'd definitely be through. Oh, well, thank you very much. And still clutching his date card in front of him, Zardos shuffled awkwardly off towards the door. I'd find something to wear if I were you, Death called after him. Those holes getting a bit drafty. He giggled to himself some more, then sighed happily. Sometimes I love this job. I do. Next! The new arrival was another elf, armed with a great black bow, impaled on an even blacker sword, and looking very upset indeed. Death beamed. His afternoon was definitely looking up. Stupid deaths, hope next time it's not you. End of story. Thank you for joining.